Welcome everybody to Bobby Talks, ... Those dots are there to tell you that there's always more to the story. And today's story is, well, love as a concept. What an interesting idea that is, huh?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with the third son out of Detroit, Michigan, currently hailing in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Third, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. This is a really dope setup. It's just a first for me, but I'm super excited to get this thing going. So,
man,
thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're super excited. I'm super excited that you're here. I've been very blessed that you were willing to drive down here in your hybrid Jeep, which just you showed up like all types of swag. I felt really inferior right away. Although I am driving a Caddy, my Caddy's 2010. What year's your ride, man?
It's a 2021.
All right, nice, very good, very good. Where you work then?
So I work at Stellantis. Used to be called Fiat Chrysler.
Okay.
They merged with a French company, Peugeot. Now they're called Stellantis. But I work at a manufacturing plant in Detroit.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And they're cool with you riding around in a Jeep?
Yeah. So it's a company car, so it's like a job perk kind of thing. But I work at JNAP. That's like the common name. That's like what it used to be called. Now it's called DAC J, but most people know like the OG name is JNAP.
Okay. So, yeah. Cool.
Jefferson North Assembly Plant.
Okay, yeah, nice. So that's is that in Detroit?
Yep, in Detroit, right on like between Mac and Jefferson.
Okay,
yep.
Nice. So were you guys open during COVID?
We were, but we weren't really producing anything like that. And then once COVID started to fade away a little bit, we started producing more cars. But
now the Delta variant is bringing it.
And like automotive's been hit pretty bad.
Yeah.
Ford's got hit, GM's got hit, and now our plant finally got hit. Our plant is now shut down.
Really?
Yeah, and like JNAP never shuts down.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Man, so how long you been working there then?
I used to intern there 2 years ago, but I started working there full time in February this year.
Okay. Well, hey, we're sitting here right now with a third son, and I just wanted to kind of set you up the way that we do on the show here.
Sure.
Bobby Talks, ... Three dots are there for a reason. We tell you that there's always more to the story. The interesting thing, I'm sitting here across from the third son. He's a singer-songwriter, producer, rapper. He is he just graduated with his master's from the University of Michigan in environmental science.
Yes, sir.
A lot of facets to you, man.
Yeah.
Where do we even get started? I think we should get started with this real love concept.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So
I love the cover art.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We can start there. So this was shot in Canton. I was living in Canton at the time.
Okay.
And the photographer, her name is Antonina Biondo. Super, really very talented photographer. And this was actually shot in our spare. I was in a 3-bedroom apartment with some friends.
Okay.
And we had a 3rd bedroom that was kind of like a more flexible space. So this was literally shot in that bedroom. Nina, that's her name. I call her Nina, but she had a black backdrop.
Okay.
So literally, we had a black backdrop. We had a table. I brought some props. I brought a multimeter, the battery pack, and she had her own lighting and all that stuff. And we shot this literally in the bedroom.
This is a great shot. Like, I don't know. I mean, you're in focus and everything around you is literally blurred out. But it's not just that. It's not just the foreground was blurred out. It's everything around it too.
And it was, we took a lot of shots, right? So I had to pick which one spoke to me the most. This one did because, as you see, I'm holding something. That's just it was like a 1.5 volt battery.
Okay.
And the light that she had was reflecting off the battery into my eye.
Yeah, I saw that. So that's what's kind of captured there in your left eye or maybe right eye. I'm not sure.
And I had some pictures where I was looking at the camera but this one I was looking down because I was kind of intrigued. And I think that kind of speaks to more of the concept. And then this logo here, that was made by another friend of mine. Her name is Marina Damaskinos. And I had the idea of how I wanted to look like, and then she just did it for me. And then, bam, there's the cover art.
Well, it's beautiful, dude. It's really cool. And so let's talk about the idea. So it took you 6 years. I'm reading this here on his Instagram, and everybody needs to go follow him on Instagram. The Third Son Rises.
Sir.
Is that the same platform everywhere? TikTok, everything?
Essentially, it's the only where it's not the same. It's Twitter, because Twitter I can't have there's a certain max you can have for your name.
Oh, right.
And that S that for Rises, I can't put it in Twitter. So on Twitter, I'm the Third Sunrise.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I know,
you're trying to brand yourself.
All right, just one letter. Come on.
See, that's how it was when I started the show. I wanted to be Bobby Talks. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just clean, simple. It makes sense. Talks, And people are like, Bobby Talks, ... That's your name. I'm like, dude, the guy was already there before me. So I went on and I grabbed the dots, the ellipsis there.
Yeah.
took you 6 years to make this album.
Yeah, so let me explain that. So like I've always experimented with music, like, you know, ever since I was a child. But when I say 6 years here, like when I seriously started like producing, when I got my own equipment and like really just hunkered down and learned this stuff, that was maybe 2015 when I got my first equipment. And then like before I even started like writing and like putting lyrics to my own stuff, that was about maybe 5 years of just like, or maybe like 4 or 5 years of just really just producing, strictly producing, like making beats.
Helping other people.
Kinda. It was more. I did a lot of stuff on my own because like I had to learn. It was like
a trial period for you.
Trial period, okay. Like learning what I, you know, like this is good, this is not good. You know, I would show like beats to my dad and my friends. My dad is also a producer, and he kind of showed me the realm. So I used Machine. That was the hardware I used.
Okay.
And he had a machine, and he taught, you know, showed me the ropes a little bit how to use it. And then once he showed me how to use it, the rest was more on me to figure out. Okay, what's my sound? Like what? What do I like? What do I do? What do I even like make? You know what I'm saying? So like I mean,
well, does it? Do you hit a? I mean, do you hear a note and it's like that resonates with you in your brain, or it makes you feel a certain way, and you're like, okay, and you start kind of doing that enough times, and you find your sound.
Yeah, no, exactly. So like growing up, I listened to a lot of different genres of music. Some producers that I was really into at that time when I started was like Sango, a lot of like underground trap. Sango, I'm trying to think of some other names here. Mr. Carmack. Even like Jay Dilla, used to listen to a lot of Jay Dilla, Pete Rock, really just a whole
a plethora of
producers, right? So then, you know, I try to listen to what they were doing, and I'd be like, okay, I see the rhythm they're trying to do, so let me see if I can try to do something like that. And then I remember like when I first I made this one beat, and it was like the first beat. I was like, yo, this is actually I'm getting somewhere, right?
Right.
Then I kept doing it, and then I have my own sound.
It always feels good when you can vibe yourself, right?
Yeah,
you're sitting there like, okay, I might actually be okay at this, right?
And I was actually, so at that time I was going by LB3.
Okay.
So that's like my initials, right? And I was just producer. I was actually going to release a instrumental project, just instrumentals.
Sure.
And it was called Haven.
Okay.
But I didn't drop it because I was kind of going through this weird like existential crisis of like,
interesting.
Do I want to just be a producer, or do I want to be an artist and a producer? Do I want to start writing lyrics and stuff to my own thing? Like, can I be in the front and center and like be
comfortable,
and be a presence? You know
so let's flesh that out for a second. Yeah. What was the insecurity with? Was the insecurity with your beats? Is the insecurity with your frontman ability, your writing ability? Like where, tell me that a little bit.
I think it was a lot of things. I think it was a little bit of my writing ability because I was still relatively new.
Sure.
I think it was also more of like being comfortable where I was, not being in the spotlight, because I struggle with this sometimes, but being in situations where they're kind of out of my control, I don't know how people are going to react. Sometimes I try to deviate from that.
It's art, man. You're putting your art out there.
Exactly. And I'm putting myself out there.
Yeah. To be critiqued.
Which was, growing up, I wasn't really like, if I had to choose whether to like do that or not, I'd rather just like, just chill. But I think, especially when I came to Eastern, I think Eastern was a time where I really got a lot of more humble confidence and was willing to put myself out there and not necessarily caring what people think, but just, just believing in myself. You know what I'm saying?
Did you come straight out of high school to Eastern?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school?
So I went to high school, Grosse Pointe South High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big school, right?
Yeah, it's about, at the time, I think it was about 1,300 kids.
I graduated with 70, so that's a big school. I'm down here in the country.
Nice.
You're up in the city. So you start to get a little bit more confidence, and you decide that instead of just doing this instrumental Haven, you're going to go down this journey. Now, because this says 6 years, when in that 6 year process did you say, okay, I'm going to make this transition to a Real Love Concept, the album?
Yep. So the first song, Retro, that was the first single I
love Retro, because I'm an 80s kid, but like I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid, and that's like right there, man, my sweet spot.
Sweet. So Retro was the first song I released as a single, and it's the first song in the album.
Yeah.
And that I wrote that song in 2018, I believe. And then I released that song in 2019.
Oh wow!
On my birthday. But yeah, that was like, I'd say that's when I started. Now, actually, the song "It's Beautiful," that's I think that's the second last song on the album. That was the first song I actually ever wrote.
Oh, really?
And recorded. But I released, that was my second single though. But that was in 2018. I actually remember that. I wrote that upstairs in my dad's flat upstairs. I made the beat. I remember making the beat, and I just remember writing to it, writing the hook. Whoa, and I made a song. I was like, wow, this is actually, I made a song, and so I kept that, and then, dropped Retro, then I dropped It's Beautiful, and then I Hope came around, and then, I wanted to make it out like a project.
Yeah, right? Momentum now, right?
I got the momentum, wanted to make a project, and I made the beats, the instrumental circuitry, right?
Okay, so this is what I want to get into.
Yeah.
All right. The other thing I failed to mention, because I talked about your environmental science, is that you're an engineering physics major from Eastern Michigan, right? And you graduated from there. What was that?
2018.
2018. Yeah. So I'm going to read something off for the listeners and the viewers at home. Yeah. This is his Instagram when he introduces A Real Love Concept, the album, the cover art. This is the little caption he put with it. He says that the album explores a revolutionary idea of connecting scientific laws from electrical circuits and applying them to our connections with people, ourselves, objects, life, and love itself. This project is very important to myself and as an artist, and I'm very excited to be vulnerable with you all on this new concept. So now that they kind of got that, run with it.
So the concept started when I was I was trying to write some lyrics to Circuitry, the instrumental, and I had an idea in my head about like of a RLC, and then a RLC. This is actually a schematic of a RLC circuit, and I'll explain what all that means.
Okay.
And in my quest of writing to Circuitry, I ended up figuring out, oh shoot, this concept is like the album. Like it encompasses everything, right? And I presented, like me and my dad have spent a lot of hours like crafting this concept into fruition. And how it goes down is a Real Love Concept is pretty much an acronym for RLC. And an RLC circuit is this schematic up here, and it has 4 components.
Okay.
And you see the R, the L, and the C. The R is a resistor. I'm just gonna name them first.
Yeah.
Your L is the inductor. Your C is your capacitor, and then the heart shape, that's the source. That's where your voltage is. That's what powers the circuit.
Okay.
Now, this is a concept, so like this is like not, like proven or anything like that.
Right, it's a theory.
It's a theory.
Yeah.
And it really makes sense, and it was really mind blowing when we came about this. So we'll start with the resistance. So each of these components has an application.
Okay.
So the resistance, right? When you're in a relationship, and it could be platonic or romantic, right? Sometimes if it goes too fast, or there's not like resistance or anything like that. If it goes too fast, if there's too much passion, if there's too much heat, sometimes the relationship's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, it fizzles out. It burns out on itself because there's no way you can maintain that type of. Yeah.
So here in the circuit, the resistor is supposed to restrict current, and when you have a low resistance, the resistor will literally burn out.
Really?
So that was like application 1. So there's a concept there. The inductance, that is, as you can see, it's like has the coils.
Yeah.
The inductor is copper. It's a coil of copper wire going around in a circle, and what it does is that it opposes the change in a circuit. I think if I remember correctly from my studies, it's the change in flux. So as essentially what it's doing is that when the current is increasing going this way, it actually induces a current going in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So with that application there is that it's able to essentially alter the current without necessarily touching it. So for that application there is I can make you feel a certain way. Some people can make you feel, can make you feel a certain types of way without necessarily touching it. It could be how they speak, how they dress.
It's the nonverbal energy.
Nonverbal energy, nonverbal communication. You know what I'm saying? You can feel out a vibe, or I'm not really feeling this person, or you may feel scared. You can feel, you can literally feel like someone's vibe just from
we speak volumes to each other just the moment we you and I just met each other, exactly. Right? And if I come out like angry or upset, like it's gonna mess up this whole interview.
Right. Yeah. So that's application 2. The third one, that's the capacitor. A capacitor, what it does, it stores charge and then discharges it. So you could say it's like a supply tank for the circuit. So for there, and you can use a romantic relationship again, you got to have some place to store like maybe the memories or to store your appreciation for someone.
Sure.
And if you don't, if there's no way you can pull that out of, then you're just like, that relationship's going to fall apart because you can't hold on to it.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong here. And tell me if I am, because that sounds like your studies, man, way over my physical education career. But I can remember back in the day, certain smells or a certain song would trigger me because of, and this happens with people all the time, right? But like we store connections to those, those things, those objects, the music or whatever, and we can pull back from it and it takes us back to a place.
Yes.
Whether it be good or bad, right?
Yeah.
All right.
That's exact. Like
I feel you.
And then like, that, wow, it's just really tying to the whole album together. It's really cool. So I'll get back to that.
Sure.
We just finished this last component, which is this. This is the source of the circuit. This is the voltage. That's and usually it's a longer line and a shorter dash line, right? And that's where the battery is. So that's what what powers the circuit. Now I put the heart over it because at the source of all this, at the source of all relationships, is like your heart, like your literal heart. You know what I'm saying? The source of emotion. And that is what powers all of this. All of our emotional, just all that stuff. That was like the source of it all. And normally, sometimes in actual like electronics, they have sometimes without that heart, it's just like the dash line, those two dashes lines, and sometimes they swap it out and use a like a wave line for like AC. So I thought it was cool because instead of that, I'm putting a heart over the circuit, and I painted it red to symbolize that even further. And that is a real love concept. So all those songs in that album is essentially talking about my appreciation for certain things. Like It's Beautiful, I'm talking about like my appreciation for like nature landscapes, sunset, sunrises. I Hope is talking about me wanting to, wanting our relationship to last and fulfill. And I hope that we can make it. And then Retro, it's my love for nostalgia and like all those fun little things we used to do as kids. So all those songs is talking about that.
So okay, this is interesting to me, man, because I can tell when you started talking about this project. First of all, like you got excited, right? Yeah. So it's not just that it took you 6 years to get to this point, but it's 6 years of you.
Yeah,
it's you. This is a really interesting way of looking at it. You found a way to take your studies, take what you're passionate about there, but also mix it into this other, right brain, left brain, and mold it into one. What kind of feedback have you gotten?
So far, it's been...
When did it come out?
It came out... The album came out February 13th, 2021.
Yeah, just dropped. Not too long ago.
Not too long ago. Still fresh. Overall, it's been really good. Really good positive feedback from family and friends. What I've been doing now is just trying to push it out. You know what I'm saying? Promoting.
In front of more viewers, more people.
More viewers, more people, yep. And then just recently, I just dropped my first visual, like a full-length visual for We Out Here. It's one of the songs on the album. It's a lyric video.
Yep, I saw the clip on Instagram.
Just dropped that, and then I have other visuals for this project coming out soon.
Okay.
So more is on the way. And but yeah, this is my first, honestly, besides those singles, this is my first project, like full-length album, first project. And what's crazy is that, this was a great project, like awesome, but I know I'm capable of doing more and like better.
So how much, since you're learning along the way, right? How much did you go back and maybe a song or two that was already completed, reopen up that, or did you just leave it as like that was a timepiece of who you were at that time? Did you try to improve on it, or did you just move on?
So,
because that could take, because you're constantly learning, man. Like you could never finish a project.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. So like Retro, I made that beat. I believe I made that beat in 2016.
Going back in time, back in time. Yeah.
So just like I made that beat in 2016. I released a project in 2021.
Okay.
So there was a time where it was just a beat and it was just in my library just as a beat. And then I like wrote to it and then dropped it in 2019 and then as an album in 2021. So it's just like I had a lot of beats like Intergalactic. I made that in 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018. And it was just sitting there, right?
Just waiting for words to come to this thing.
I had no idea it was going to be on the album, but just going through some of these beats, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is no.
So you're sampling it, you're playing it, and you're like, what do I hear? Like, what is it that, what emotion is it bringing out of me? And then you kind of go, tell me a little bit about your writing process.
So yeah, usually my writing process is I start with the beat first, and how the beat makes me feel kind of helps me guide how I write, what my writing's going to be about.
Okay.
Sometimes it may go the other way. Like I may have like some bars in my head or like a nice like saying that I might be like, oh, that's really cool, and maybe I'll write a song about it. But most of the time, it's I make the beat first,
Okay,
and then I write how the beat makes me feel.
yeah, that's challenging, man. I that's really interesting. I got to tell you, I was, I don't know if you knew this or not. Maybe when I presented or introduced myself to you. So I found you on something. It sounds like a dating site, but it's not. It's Matchmaker.fm. It's for podcasters. Did you know that you were on this, or is it something that was just thrown together? Like I can never tell if people are polled on this and they don't even know it. Or
So I made myself a profile. I knew I was on it.
Okay.
I haven't really been active on it, like
Sure.
to the site. So when you messaged me on Instagram, that's how I figured out. Oh,
yeah. So there's this website. It's called Matchmaker.fm, and I have been trying to branch out, as it sounds like you were, trying to figure out how to get my product in front of more people, and just kind of have more interesting guests on the show and just go from there. And I came across you, and I was like, oh, this guy from Ann Arbor. And I dove into what you were saying, and then like this whole idea of this real love concept. So, because I don't think there's enough of this going on in the world right now. This whole idea of us pushing each other to more of a connection, sharing love. Why are you so compelled to be a positive light in such a negative space, or do you not view it that way?
I think that's actually a really good question.
Because you were talking about your existential crisis, and I know that was more about your insecurities with your craft.
Yeah.
But like, was there something deeper there?
I think, honestly, like making this project has been like, I think it has really shown me that, I have something that people can resonate with. And it, like growing up, I never, like if you asked me like in high school that, hey, you're going to be an artist and you're going to actually make an album and you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to be doing shows and all that stuff, I would be like, what? No, I wouldn't believe that. I used to always be like kind of like the follower, and like I would do my own thing and do it well, but like I just looking back, it just felt like I was more of a follower. And then doing this music, I just think it really has like shown me that I can be a voice for some people.
Yeah.
I never thought that, like, I don't know, I just felt like I never thought I could like write things that people would resonate with or like what I would have to say. But
it's this idea of speaking, which is important for everybody, being heard, but then realizing that not only are you being heard, people are taking in what you're saying and they're, like you said, resonating with it, and then hopefully putting that into application in their life.
Yeah. And it's like I think making music has really like just shown me that I do have a gift and what I'm doing is good for this world, and I'm just going to keep doing it because I love it. It's just when you have something that you're super passionate about and you're like you're euphoric about it, and it just makes you feel a certain just good positive vibes, and it speaks to you. I'd say go for it. And I think, honestly, my time at Eastern has really, like I said, there was a lot of growth at my time at Eastern. I was also student body vice president.
Okay.
I was an RA, office manager, a lot of roles where I'm put in positions of like leadership, and you're also put in a lot of uncomfortable positions too.
That's where growth happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that really helped me like just be more comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
So where's that moment in your life where, because you're coming from high school where you felt like a follower, which the world needs followers too. It's got a negative connotation around it, as long as you're following the right habits, right? Mm-hmm. Where's that moment in your life where you're like, okay, maybe I should put myself in a position to be a student vice president?
Yeah.
And why? Why do you put yourself in that position? Because you don't have to.
Right. No, that's a good question. I don't have to. That's a really good question. And honestly, I think what it really started, like when I really started to see, like, I guess a trajectory or a change in my life, was when I got accepted into this RAU, which is a research experience for undergrads.
Okay.
And it was a pretty much like a research internship, you could say. But I got accepted in Ohio State, and that was the summer of 2016.
Watch out now.
I know. I'm in. Gotta be careful what I say around here. Right. But yeah, I got an internship there. Was in there for a summer. It was super cool. I made some friends through that program. I was in a household of all Spanish speakers. It was awesome.
Really?
Yeah. Most of them were from Puerto Rico. One was from California, and they were like really close friends of mine. And like after that program was over, later that in December, I flew down to Puerto Rico and see them, and that was great. That was really awesome. But like after that moment, I don't know. I like that was like a really big first step, especially in my like academic career, right? And then wait, go.
No, I was just gonna ask you on top of that. So you guys are all, you know, bright kids. You're all sitting in this house, living together, and you're clearly talking, right? You said they were all Spanish speaking. Did you understand?
So they were Spanish and English speakers.
Okay, they're bilingual, yeah.
Yeah, they're bilingual, native Spanish speakers, and I could pick out some words. So
Sure.
I grew up like taking a lot of Spanish classes in school, but when I go home, I never speak it because no one in my family speaks Spanish. But I could pick out some words.
Yeah.
I tried to practice and speak some phrases with them, so I know little phrases here and there. And I think I'm confident enough or comfortable enough if I was placed like randomly in a Spanish speaking country, I think
that you could do well.
I could get by. I think, you know, I still maybe might embarrass myself, but it's, you know, it's still cool.
You're definitely gonna embarrass yourself. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
That language barrier there. So this propelled you to kind of have more confidence. Yeah. Is there something to be said that we as people? I know it happens for me. My best friend he's well studied. He's a deep thinker. And I feel like I have to run to the dictionary 10 times a day just to keep up with him. He pushes me to be better. But I always am insecure in any conversation with him sometimes because I feel like, even though I'll never show it on the outside, there's something as people that maybe we're insecure in our intelligence and what we bring to the table. Yeah. When, you know, if I'm feeling that way, you know, I know Third's feeling that way. And if we could just
like speak about it,
yeah. Acknowledge it, be vulnerable, like you say.
That was really hard, especially being in a physics program. Like, you know, like, oh, it's called imposter syndrome, right? That is huge. I have struggled with that like pretty much throughout my whole life.
I think we all have to, though, don't you think?
Yeah. No, it's like everyone goes through it. It's like the unspoken like elephant in the room.
I guess even if you step in a room, right, there is a hierarchy, right? But nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
It might be under, you know, as you kind of, you know, you go through the semester, you kind of can figure out who the hierarchy, who holds that top spot as far as intelligence level, right? Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean you don't deserve a seat at the table. Yeah. And I think too often, I know I did. I went to Bowling Green State University to get my degree in all this, TV, film, and radio before I ever went back to be a teacher. Right. And I admit that like that crippled me because I tried to fake it till I made it, but all these other kids came from a more cinematographer or more like film background, things of that nature. And I came from a country school that didn't offer that. Right. I was just interested in it. And I should have asked more questions during that time, where at that time I ran versus sinking my teeth in and kind of, you know, getting better at my craft. Yeah. Now I'm a little bit more secure with myself. I ask too many questions and I annoy people, but I guess that's why I'm doing a podcast now.
Yeah, that's true. And
so,
like, just to add to that, like, I wasn't so like, I guess this kind of led to some of my insecurities too. So like in school, you know, I did get good grades for the most part. You know, it was like in high school, I think our average was like a 3.3 GPA, 3.1 GPA. So I didn't get all A's or anything like that. But like when I went to undergrad, freshman year was cool because like you take a lot of gen ed, so I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, it sets you up for the social life of it, right?
But when I started my physics program, like started taking this like sophomore classes, I had to retake the first class, mechanics and sound. It's called mechanics and sound. It's pretty much physics 1.
Okay.
It's calculus based. You use calculus. I had to retake that class because the lab section, I didn't do well in the lab section.
Okay.
My writing was not good, so I had to retake that class, so I took that class twice. The second class, this was electricity and light. This is actually the class where we learned this RLC circuit.
Interesting. I
had to take that class again because you needed a C or higher, and I got a C minus.
Oh man!
So I was like that close, but I got a C minus, so I had to take that class again. But the second time I did really well. But when I was in a program, I wasn't perfect. Like I was getting like D's on tests and like C's on exams. And it was just like stressing me out because like I want to do well. I tried, I put the time in to study. I had some like really. I had this one very very hard professor, like probably one of the hardest I've ever had. I give them a lot of respect because she, as a physicist, being a woman in the physics program is like a rarity. I think it's changing now, but in her time, which I think maybe might have been like the 80s or 90s or so, but woman in the physics was not that common.
So that must tell you how much she knows her stuff, right?
Yeah, no, and
because she was able to overcome all that.
Yeah, and I give her like the utmost respect because that's awesome. But she was a hard grader. And,
she made you earn it.
Yeah, she really did. You had to earn it, and it was kind of tough. It was like hard. It was kind of hurt for me because like I wanted to do well, and like it's just like I wasn't. It was just hard,
But so, kudos to you for having the persistence to kind of see it through. Because a lot of people would have been like, man, maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe I don't want to continue to do this. It's bad for my mental space.
I have thought about switching pages multiple times.
Well, yeah, you went from engineering physics to environmental science.
Yeah. And that was actually, like, I did that because I wanted to go into energy space, like renewable energy and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's still, like, applications from my physics background into that.
Sure.
But, yeah, just being in that kind of space where like it's you don't trust yourself, you don't think you're smart enough to like actually do well in this class, and
right.
Like honestly, like growing up I was always one of the only black kids in the classroom. That had a lot to do with like my confidence and like fitting in kind of thing.
Interesting.
But I think just through the years I've been more comfortable with myself and not really caring about.
So at Eastern, it's a fairly diverse school.
Yeah.
Fairly.
Yeah.
I don't know the demographic breakdown, but I remember my time there.
U of M. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yes.
So did you feel like you were one of the only or few black kids in the program?
Oh, I was.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. There was like, at the time when I was going there, it might have been, honestly, maybe one or two other black students in the program.
So help me understand then. What is that? You said that impacted your confidence too. Mm-hmm. How so? How does the race, and if you're not comfortable explaining, we can go somewhere else with it, but I'm curious what you mean by that.
Well, I think it was more impactful for me in, I'd say, elementary and middle school.
Okay.
I think in undergrad I was comfortable with it because I grew up with it my whole life.
Right. So you kind of already did the.
So that wasn't really the issue. I think more the issue for the confidence in undergrad in the physics department was just that, like, I'm learning all this material. It was really hard to understand.
Yeah, because at that point, I always feel like at the college level, race, all these other variables aside, you got to know the damn content, right? And the content makes truth, or liars and truths of us all type thing. So, because I know I struggled for a while, man. They put me in an astrology class at 8:00 in the morning, and
astrology or astronomy? Astrology?
Was it astrology? No, it was astronomy. It's okay. Yeah, because we were in the bubble. Yeah, I had to go in there and I had to look at the stars and all that. Yeah. 8:00 in the morning on a Monday after trying to survive the weekend.
That's rough. Actually, I had a physics class. It was 8 a.m. to 8:50 Monday through Friday.
Yeah, but you weren't in this class where like the first thing you did when you came in was you had to take the seat, put it all the way back, look up at the dome. You're in this black room.
I took a same class, very similar to that. And this guy, he was the teacher was very, very sweet, very like a go lucky kind of guy.
Sure.
He was also like kind of soft spoken sometimes, so he had that very like put you to sleep voice.
That's what happened to mine. Already, like, so monotone. I'm like, I failed that class. I was like, I got to do this again. I'm like, I want to be TV, film, and radio. Why am I in astronomy class?
Right.
I needed a science credit.
But yeah, just to add to when you were talking about those factors of like being like the only black student in the classroom. For some, it can be challenging because some professors, I think, and this is just me from like my experience, what I hear people go.
Speak freely, man. Yeah.
People go through a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And some of it could be like home related stuff at the home. It could be things going around in the country. It could be like you said, you had a show about George Floyd.
Yep.
And that, that makes people, that impacts people, right? And some professors are like kind of insensitive to that, I think, or they're just not aware that can actually impact people in that kind of way. And I think, as a professor, course, your job is you're trying to teach material. You're
right.
to teach material, right? But I think it could speak a lot to a lot of students if you come from an area of like, just knowing that, hey, some people have different lives than me. Some people have gone through different things than I have gone. So, if you try to put yourself in their shoes, with respect to as much as you can.
Sure. Yeah.
We can't fully like live everyone's life.
Never going to be able to.
Never gonna be able to. But if you can like empathize, what I'm saying? I think empathy is like huge, and I think it's a quality that I think everyone should have.
I wish it was so innate that people understood empathy for each other. It would go a long way. Yeah.
I've had professors who are very knowledgeable to that.
Do you think? All right, let's see if we can try to be fair here for a second, if as fair as we can, because I didn't experience what you experienced, so I don't want to by any means try to undercut that. Do you think because of your subject matter, they felt like they could escape any type of social? Because they're so subject heavy versus like, if you were more in a humanitarian type of a degree, it kind of forces you to speak on those topics.
Right.
Do you think they kind of hid behind that a little bit? Or do you think they were just insensitive because that's who they were?
It could be both. It depends. You know what I'm saying? So like there are professors out there that can be insensitive.
Sure, absolutely. I've had a few.
You know what I'm saying? But there's also professors who are aware, of those.
Life-changing too.
That could be life-changing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like, I think in the STEM field, it's like you said, it's different because it's STEM. It doesn't focus that much on those things. I think it should, because in the past, like
it's still people learning it.
Yeah, it's still people learning it. And I think learning the history of it too, I think it's just as important as learning.
Interesting.
The concepts that we learn now today. You know what I'm saying? So
you ever shared this with them?
I actually have not, because we I guess from like my experience, right? It wasn't. I guess it wasn't necessarily like brought up, or I didn't feel the need to bring it up, so to speak.
Sure.
But I do know that it's a problem for some students. Or some
others have expressed the same.
Yes.
I would challenge you, even now, 3 years removed, 4 years removed from that time period, to go back or to just send an email. If those same people are there, not even just the head of the program, and be like, seeing it from another side now, so and so, I'm just got my master's from Michigan. That gives you more credence and more of a voice. And I especially having those thoughts, worst case scenario, it just falls flat, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you actually brought it up, because I actually thought about this specifically for my high school. So
okay,
I went to Grosse Pointe South High School. It's a predominantly white high school.
I don't know that high school that well. That's in Ann Arbor, Detroit.
So Grosse Pointe is a suburb of Detroit.
Okay,
it's literally right next to Detroit. And then actually a little context too. So I was born in Detroit, and I lived in Detroit since I was born till middle school.
Okay.
Then I lived in Grosse Pointe from middle school to high school. Then I went to Eastern. And then after Eastern, I came back to Detroit, lived there for a while. So like I've been like moving around a lot, but like all my family's in the city in Detroit. My family still lives there currently now, work in Detroit. So when people say where I'm from, I say Detroit, even though I have had.
You got roots in both places.
Yeah. Both places. Do have some experience in Grosse Pointe too. So yeah, going back to what you mentioned about that, I have thought about actually going back to Grosse Pointe, and whether it's via email, to express my concerns about. I think, because granted, this was a long time ago, so I could be forgetting about some stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But I do think that we could learn more on like Black history, Native American history,
It's a big topic right now.
It is.
Critical race theory.
Yeah. And even that, like, I feel like a lot of people don't fully know what that means. I mean, I kind of don't fully know what that means. I've read on
it's all over the news, right? We all know what it means now because it's all over the news. We're all experts, right?
We're all experts. But like, I do think that I don't think we should erase like Black history. Like I heard what's going on in Texas. They're trying to like
adjudicate.
They want to ban or like saying it's not a requirement for schools to teach like Martin Luther King,
right?
I'm like, or the KKK. I'm like, you don't want to teach? Shoot, that's like that's a pivotal.
It's an overcorrection of it's a what's the word I want to say here? It's a facade or what's the word?
Facade.
Facade. Thank you. It's a facade of fixing a problem without even really having an idea of what the problem is.
Yes, I agree.
And that's why, like, so I'll give you full transparency on me. So like last year, I told you I started the Bobby Talks podcast last year, and the first episode was with a couple of my friends, and we were discussing Black Lives Matter movement. We were discussing the George Floyd murder, and just kind of the things that transitioned from that, and kind of the state of the country, right? And one of the biggest reasons why is because I knew that I started the podcast is because I told you we were sitting there talking, and we thought it'd be a good platform to share, just to show the world, hey, look, we can have differences and tolerate. We can also have a lot more in common and tolerate. But I teach, and I'm a school teacher, and I teach leadership, and I teach some other classes, and I teach an all-white school. And it was important, especially down here in the rural country, right? It was important that they knew where I stood on things. Yeah. It was important that they, without shoving it in anybody's face, because you're never going to teach anybody that way. You're never going to teach a 14, 15, 16-year-old student by telling them this is the way it is. You have to probe the mind. Yeah. You have to take any biases that they might have learned and open them up and have them dissect them themselves. And I thought they did a really good job of that. But it was, it's challenging though, man. I think you should go back and have those conversations.
So actually, when that last summer, there was a lot in my lifetime, and I think people said even their own lifetimes, people who were born in like the 60s and stuff, that they have never seen a movement as big as that when the George Floyd protests were last summer. Like there was so much just
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Such a push for like education in that protests literally everywhere. I was at two. I went to one in Downriver near Riverview. And then I was at another one actually in Grosse Pointe.
Oh, wow.
And I actually spoke.
You did?
Yeah.
The follower from high school spoke?
Yeah. I spoke at the protests about my experiences in Grosse Pointe. And
interesting.
That was the first place where I experienced like unwanted behavior.
This is where I would say I think you have to go back and tell them, because it's important, instead of ringing a bell and blaming a finger and saying that this was my experience. If they don't know your experience, now granted, we can have the conversation of why didn't they know your experience, right? A little bit more self-awareness, a little bit, right? But either way, the byproduct is that this happened to you, right? Mm-hmm. You need to give them the opportunity to do right by it rather than shine the light on it. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, because maybe they will do right by it. Maybe they won't, but then you can go on in your journey and say that I presented this school with some of the challenges that we felt. They totally turned cheek to it, didn't want to hear it, and now you can on that pedestal. I say that as somebody who's worked the administration side of a school, where if I was unaware of something, I'd love to know, and I would want to change it, because I have an all-inclusive nature. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean I make all the decisions, but I would definitely have a voice at the table. So I would go back and talk to them, even if sounds like maybe you could change some, lives of some kids that are there now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that is something that could be done. I feel like
maybe they'll watch this.
Maybe they will watch this. It has been. I feel like it has been brought up, but I have to do more research on that and see how many times has it brought up.
So I was speaking out of turn. I apologize. Then
it's okay, but because I haven't done like super extensive like research on this. You know what I'm saying? But there have been a lot of incidences at that school.
Sure.
Where there was kids that wrote the N-word on their stomachs and stuff. So and then they've also had a lot of there's been a few suicides at the school, very heavy stuff. And it's just looking back.
From the black culture?
No, just the students.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
The N-word was white students.
Right.
Suicides, I think were white students. But just looking back,
right,
after leaving the school and looking back, It's just like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
What happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, no, that is something I've thought about for sure, about like going back and maybe giving back, and maybe, you know, I've acquired all this knowledge, you know, going through my studies. How can I make the community a better space for, you know, everyone, or something like that? You know, I've thought about that sometimes.
I think it's huge, and I wish you tremendous luck on your journey there, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe you can present them the real love concept.
Yeah.
No, we say that, but like, you know, it's really a deep album in the sense of like, it's just not enough. Like, we're not doing enough of spreading love with each other.
I agree.
And why do you think that is?
You know, I've
Because
really
I think
thought
we
about
learn hate.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
No, hate is definitely learned.
So,
Like, what do we do? Like, that's like, I guess that's like the $1 million question.
because I think it's unfair to just say things are bad, because with the bad, you just said it yourself how big those protests were.
Yeah.
There's so much good out there, but we're only ringing the bell about the bad. Now, don't get me wrong. We should absolutely be constantly fighting against the bad, but we also need to take time and appreciate that, yes, America is this fickle animal, but these protests were black, white, Asian, LGBTQ, the whole thing, man. I mean, that wouldn't have looked like that maybe in the 20s, 100 years ago.
Right.
So there's progress.
Yeah, I think there's progress being made. I do think there's like obstacles to that progress for sure, at a lot of different levels of society, like, you know, federal government, state governments,
Systematic. Sure.
Individuals, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always going to be some obstacles, but I do think, you know, sometimes you just gotta, I think if long as the passion is there and the people in the right places, we can make that change, and we can be the change we wish to see in this world. You know, coming from the environmental school, you know, C's, I mean, another obstacle that we're facing right now is like climate change. And I'm a firm believer of climate change, 100%. And I think we are seeing the effects of climate change right now. I mean, Michigan or Detroit area had its like most rain in one single day, 6 inches of rain.
Yeah, my buddy lives up in Troy, and he was like worried that it was coming to his front doorstep.
Yeah, like my mom's house was affected. My mom's house flooded in the basement. We had to throw some things out. Grosse Pointe got hit really bad too.
What city does your mom live in, or what suburb?
She lives in Detroit.
Oh, she lives in the city. Okay.
In the city of Detroit. Yeah, she's always been. Well, when we were in Grosse Pointe, I was with my mom.
Okay.
So yeah, but now my mom's back in the city. My
Gotcha.
dad's in the city too. My dad's always been in the city. But yeah, mom's basement got flooded. My grandma and my great aunt's house, their house got flooded. Like Detroit got hit, and we are going to expect more of that. And this is not just here. Like Germany, Western Europe got hit really bad too with a lot of floods. So, and then, I mean, even in the Pacific Northwest, it was just as hot up there than in Las Vegas.
Right.
Like, that's unheard of.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think, you know, my dad and I talked about this, but he thinks that we've already passed that tipping point. You know what I'm saying? Of the, I think they were trying to like limit the warming of the earth by 1.5 degrees.
Yeah.
We passed that already, you know. And it's just unfortunate because the science is there. But, you know, there's people, like I said, there's always going to be obstacles.
Obstacles are a good word.
Yeah.
We're not only is the science, all right, we live in a time of disinformation right now, right? That's an obstacle.
Yes.
What is true? What is not true? Who's controlling the narrative, influence, and whether or not, like Donald Trump's book out right now. What is it? It's entitled.
You said Donald Trump has a book out, right?
I believe he does. Okay. I don't want to speak out of turn. I do not like speaking in hyperbole on this show. So we're going to do a little half-ass internet research here, if we can. We're going to go to, it's something like, I can fix this on my own. Very narcissistic, very Trump, way of doing it. But I don't want to speak. I just saw this the other day, book. I could be wrong. Maybe he didn't write it. Maybe somebody wrote it for him. I alone can fix it. Carol Leonnig and Philip Rucker on their Trump bestseller. Okay, so these two wrote this. Yeah, very interesting.
Okay.
But that right there kind of goes to the point, though, of like that type of mentality. Nobody that is worthy of any accolades did it on their own. Science, any Nobel Peace Prize, whatever, they did not do it on their own. Right. So why does the influence think they can? I mean, because I've talked openly about Trump, and I know a lot of people don't like to go there. My biggest thing with him is that obviously his approach to leadership is atrocious in my opinion, but it's this narcissistic viewpoint of I'm the least racist person you've ever met. I'm the nicest person you've ever met. I'm blah, blah, blah. If you have to say that and tell people that, then you're not. You know what I mean? But truth is just by me saying that 30 seconds on this show, I might have just lost people listening to the show, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But that's the influence. That's the narrative that people like, environmentalists are fighting against, is that type of disinformation. I don't know if there's a question in there, but what are your thoughts on just where we are right now as a people?
Well, I guess talking on the
fighting back against that obstacle of disinformation.
I do think that's a major problem. I mean, we're seeing that with even coronavirus. There's been so much misinformation about that, and it's tough because I think we're in the golden age of social media right now.
That goes with it too.
And it's tough because you get into free speech, what can people say, what people cannot say. You know what I'm saying? It's a very
we just did a show on this, me and Professor Mike Neal over at Adrian College. Oh, nice. He was a broadcast journalism professor, and we came on and we talked a lot about the idea of the freedom. Do you as a person, do you want the freedom of misinformation, right? Or do you want truth?
I mean, that's a good question. I think initially...
Because in this country, that... contradicts itself sometimes. We have the freedom to get out there and say coronavirus doesn't exist. Yeah. You get enough people to believe that, now you've altered truth.
Yeah, you've altered truth. I mean, some people think this is a touchy subject, but I mean, even with the election, I mean, some people think the election was stolen.
Right.
Good majority think it was a fair election. I mean, that's the whole thing. Do you want the misinformation or do you want truth?
We want freedom, but we want it to be correct. The information be correct, right? But then if the information is now being used as a pawn, and this is, I will say this to be completely fair, it is infuriating when someone like Nancy Pelosi or the CDC, when they have been caught not being fully truthful or fully representative the message that they claim to be on that side of. That does hurt the cause. Yeah, and you understand? Yeah. So it's now you're kind of caught defending, and then you can't defend because they're doing the thing that you absolutely can't stand in the first place. Yeah. So you have to remove yourself from all parties altogether and kind of find yourself as an independent. And I think independents need a whole movement, man.
Yeah, I think we're in a very interesting time right now, especially with regards to that kind of thing. I think it's a very pivotal point in our country. And I don't know, I don't know what we need to do to fix it, but it does require a lot of work top to bottom, maybe even a transformation of how we view ourselves as Americans, in this country. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? It's going to happen.
And it's going to take us sitting at the table with somebody that you don't necessarily agree with, because I don't believe in shunning off conversation, because even though you think, and I was kind of flirting with this road for a while there. I was like, okay, you're saying batshit crazy stuff. You and I can't talk. Yes, there's that type of person, but then there's somebody who righteously believes that the coronavirus is a hoax or it was manipulated and set off, or Fauci is crazy, even though he's represented Republican presidents and he's represented Democratic presidents. So now he's been listed as this liberal guy. All of a sudden, it's like, this guy's been here for 7 presidents. I mean, it's incredible how somebody like Fauci, who has put his time in, is now the villain in some people's eyes. Again, you'd like to see him be 100% consistent along the way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's a villain either. It's an interesting time. You're absolutely correct, man. Yeah. Absolutely correct. I didn't know if we were going to venture that long on those topics, but it's
like, wow, we went from music to here. Like, wow.
But you know what? It's because the music represents love. We need more of it, right?
Yes, we do.
Here's what I want to do if you're willing to stick around, man.
Yeah.
We are at the end of the YouTube show, man. If time flies like that. Yeah. I'm sitting here with the third son. He's out of Detroit, out of Ann Arbor. He's got roots in those 2 places. He just made a really, really good album called The Real Love Concept. Multifaceted, educated, studied man, the whole thing. I've enjoyed talking to you. I'd like to go another 10, 15 for our Spotify listeners, dive a little bit more back into the music, what you got going on, where we can catch you maybe, some of the live shows.
Yeah.
All right, YouTube, we'll see you guys on the road. So where can we find you, man?